I want to talk a little bit about what money actually gets you when it comes to the world of animation. We all know that animation can be extremely expensive, but I want to lend some examples, especially a particular example, to this so that we can actually really see how huge the difference can be when a significant amount of money comes into play. So to start with, we all know that I am a huge fan of The Legend of Korra, the follow-up to Avatar: The Last Airbender, probably one of the most expensive television animation productions done in the US. It might be the most expensive, I'm not sure. What I am sure about is that there are claims online that the budget of a single episode of this show could be anywhere from $1.5 million to $1.8 million. This is a budget that is approaching that of a prime-time live-action drama. I mean, think about that for a moment. Spending that kind of money on animation is pretty much asking to not be able to make your money back. But the results are clear. It's simply some of the best 2D hand-drawn animation ever seen in an American TV series. Never mind that it's animated in Korea. As far as American cartoons go, I don't think I've ever seen anything even close to this level. And I would say it's really getting up there with feature-level animation. That's another story, though, which I'm not going to get into. The point I want to make here is that when you look at a typical Japanese animated series, the budget for a single episode is usually in the range of around $150,000 an episode. Some shows are cheaper, going down as low as $120,000 an episode. And of course, higher level shows which have a named director or a named franchise can go more expensive. Shows like Cowboy Bebop or Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex can get up to $250,000 or even $300,000 per episode. But I want you to think about the numbers here. What we're essentially talking about is that a single episode of The Legend of Korra can cost as much as 10 or more episodes of your typical Japanese animated series. That is a huge difference. Now, making your money back is the name of the game when it comes to broadcast animation, and word on the street is that the last season of The Legend of Korra ended up streaming mostly on the web and not broadcast on its normal schedule. More recent Nickelodeon news looks even more dismal. Apparently, because of some shifts in their parent company Viacom, and because their ratings have been in a perpetual freefall for years, the company is moving more towards a studio model where they basically produce content for third parties rather than creating their own for themselves. All of this leads me to believe that that show had to have lost money. A show that expensive, making its money back through advertising alone is simply impossible. And the merchandising, although there was some, was not on the level of, say, a huge Marvel or Star Wars property. So we're looking at the future, which I have lamented for some time, and that we may never see another show with that level of animation. And considering the huge difference in budgets, especially with Japanese shows, it's unlikely we're going to see much on that level coming out of there. But it's not impossible, and that's one of the main things I want to talk about here. In Japan, shows make their money back in roundabout ways, as the show itself is rarely profitable on its own. One of the ways they do this is because the majority of the shows come from manga, which are the printed magazines that come out weekly or monthly and then are later released in paperback form. Now, I have found data, and I hope I'll be able to find it to show on the screen, that the release of a good anime series can actually double or even triple the sales of a manga from which that show is produced. And think about what that means for the publishers, and the publishers are the ones who usually put up the majority of money. As you know, most Japanese animated shows are created by production committees, which include the broadcast network, the manga publisher, the music licensing companies, and so on. And most of them are the ones who make the money from that show, whereas the studio that actually does the work makes very little, and some of them are struggling to survive. But the point is, they make their money back not so much from the show itself as for advertising revenue, which Nickelodeon would do, because that's going to the TV station who is part of the production committee. The original manga publisher, they're getting double or triple their sales, so they're making money that way. And then you have the merchandising. which is why, unfortunately, the anime industry in general has become extremely monotonous towards a certain type of look and style that is going to sell a certain type of figure. But I'm not going to get into that. The point is, there are many ways to generate revenue, but the studio must rely on DVD and Blu-ray sales, which are also either stagnant or in free fall. But what happens if you're a game company and you want to create an anime series to promote your massive multiplayer online game or card game? In this case, I'm talking about Shingeki no Bahamut Virgin Soul, also known as Rage of Bahamut. This show comes from an extremely popular card game, and looking at the information on Wikipedia, you can see that this company was, at least at one point, doing as much as $5 million a month in revenue from the players of their online game. You can imagine that they have a significant amount of money to put into an animated series that's going to further promote their property, and it shows on the screen. I mean, this show, I would say, is just, I almost don't even have the words. It's so amazing. You don't see this kind of animation in anime, except maybe in some of the really good feature films. What they're doing in this show is absolutely amazing visually. Now, one of the things you will note on this show is you don't see a list of sponsors on the beginning after the intro. You only see a simple screen with the Cygames logo, and there's nothing spoken, because they have the money to put into making this show themselves and to make it at the level they want to make it. And, well, look at it. I mean, what more really needs to be said? I can only hope that this is not also going to fall into that same category as The Legend of Korra, which I lament as a level of animation that we may never see again. Let's hope that streaming services like Netflix, Amazon, and whatever Disney rolls out can change the game for the world of animation. Netflix's Castlevania actually gives me hope, as do some of their Japanese productions, which do appear to be a much higher budget than your typical anime series. If that doesn't do it, then maybe we indie creators will just have to fill the gaps.